Hi, you're with Peter Carr and Scott Stewart on LTV's The Research Channel. One of the latest briefings we attended was the Unisys Analyst Day held in Sydney earlier in October.
Yes.
I've always enjoyed the Unisys Analyst Day. They cover quite a broad spectrum of the services market in Australia and certainly Asia Pacific. In Asia Pacific, they've been very dominant, especially in some of the transportation-based industries like airlines. And so there's a lot of behind-the-scenes technology that Unisys brings to a lot of organisations that many people aren't aware of. And I know it was your first time at the Unisys Analyst Day, so what were some of the highlights for you?
Well, I think the interesting thing about that day, and I really enjoyed it, and Unisys were great. I mean, clearly they've put a lot of effort and energy into refocusing and really deciding what their strategy, what their market, what their position is. So I think they had some tough times during the GFC, and clearly they were very excited by really sort of defining what it is they're going to do and how they're going to do it. So that was quite refreshing, actually. But when I first approached it, I was asking myself, what do you think about when you hear the word Unisys? What do you think about?
Oh, so I'm quite biased now because I've been exposed to them for a number of years, but certainly. They're a company that have been around for a very long time. They're one of these traditional organisations like IBM that started off selling typewriters 100 years ago.
That's right.
And they've really evolved over that time. And now they're almost. When I think of Unisys, I think of the shadow men kind of behind the scenes doing a lot of that processing work. So with banks in terms of check processing, I mentioned transportation before. They do a lot in education, and so they've traditionally, were the mainframe people as well. And now they're kind of morphing again. So
yeah, and that's exactly sort of what I was thinking. When I was pondering, what I knew of Unisys before I went to the briefing, and I think a lot of people probably would answer the same thing. You kind of know they've been around for a long time. Many people will remember Burroughs and Sperry and all those and the innovative days. I mean, they've always had a lot of innovation in their mainframe, and they still do. But I think the quiet achiever is kind of where I was thinking, because I didn't really understand what they did, and so it was very enlightening. And I think that after 100 years of solving a lot of business problems, they've decided that they're going to focus on the things that work. So they've had a good look at their market. They've had a good look at every sort of bid that they win, and they've spoken to their customers. And they've decided, instead of trying to do everything for everyone, they're actually going to focus on the core areas where they've been most successful.
Okay, so what were the core areas? Because Unisys, I mean, many people will remember that from 2006 through 2007, 2008, they actually had a global turnaround period because Unisys were in the red in 2005, 4-5 in quite a significant way. But they turned that around to the point of producing a 10% EBIT return at the end of that 3-year period. So they came back through that focus. So I guess what is their renewed focus moving forward? Yeah,
absolutely, and certainly the profit projections are very positive in the next few years. So they definitely have had a major turnaround. So to their credit, and perhaps if we just put the slide up, you can see that these are basically the 4 core areas that they're focusing on. So they're focusing on security,
and that's certainly an area we've always considered for them to be quite strong.
Yes. Yeah. And within that security, they're focusing on identity and people security.
Biometrics.
Yes, location and perimeter security, and of course cyber security. And as a result, well, I guess that not as a result, but that's probably born out of the work they've been doing with some very high profile, like New South Wales Police and some of the federal departments, immigration. Yeah. So they're very strong in that area and very robust. Data center transformation and outsourcing, and this is infrastructure outsourcing and ITO as they call it. And
this is traditional outsourcing,
yes,
right?
That's right, traditional outsourcing. They're very good at it. They have a very robust approach to reporting on performance impacts. So they basically cover it from the data center to the dashboard. So it's a very compelling service offering for the CIO to have such granular transparency and visibility of the performance metrics and the outcomes and all the service impacts.
And I think one of the key drivers for their success in that traditional outsourcing area is that they were a company who spent a lot of time specifically focusing on the people side of that equation. And so when they go through the outsourcing, it's not just about the services and the technology and the service level agreements and things like that. They focus a lot on the vendor management, the paired resources inside their organisation with the customer organisation, and so that matrixed human resource model of theirs is very strong.
Yes, they're very much a services company. I think it's about 80% the percentage. Even though within these offerings they do talk about sort of the appliance, they do offer this sort of appliance approach to delivering that total solution. Very focused on capability, skills, managing people, process, and the technology. They're very strong in that. So I was very impressed. In the end user outsourcing and support, they're very much aware of the modern trends of mobility, security of mobility. This is where the security kind of dovetails across all these 4 areas. So they're doing a lot of work in that area, and it's very, very impressive. So they see mobility as a keen area, and not just sort of the technology approach to security. It's very much around the process and the people and the change management.
So what about things like cloud then? To have all these things in place, it's a natural leap for them to be a player in that trusted infrastructure space, right? So what's the cloud story?
It's pretty much a private cloud hybrid, so it's pretty much that it's not a public offering. It's not as much a multi-tenant strength as I can see. It's more around we will host your infrastructure. I'm sure there is a lot of multi-tenant in that offering, but I can see it very much more as a private / hybrid cloud offering.
It'll be very interesting to see how they play out in our Trusted Cloud Pulse this year. I know that in 2011 they didn't make the final Pulse because they hadn't yet signed up an Australian organisation to that trusted cloud model. Obviously, lots of traditional outsource clients, but not a cloud client. But we expect that to be quite different and for them to perform quite strongly in 2012.
Definitely, and I think that they're anxiously awaiting for us to start that study in the next few weeks, and we'll be very keen to participate, and that will be very interesting to see where they come out in that.
Okay, so the final thing, I guess, if you want to finish on this point, is that they've also been very strong in that application space, right?
Yes, application modernisation, and that's the part that's intriguing for me, because particularly as enterprises, move to a cloud strategy, potentially they are going to need to address a lot of their ERP solutions, a lot of their legacy, and this is the area that they do very well in.
So when we talk about application modernisation, what are we talking about? Remediation of old systems, or migration to new systems, or at the technical architecture model, from an SOA perspective? What is it?
All that, and definitely the SOA is a key component of that. So it's modernising those applications. So it's basically, I guess, breaking them apart and architecturally looking at how they can transition to services orientated, then therefore be able to perhaps move to a workload sort of environment in a cloud model, or even work on a mobility platform. So they have a lot of skills, global skills. The other key thing is that they've really been able to coordinate the global skills. They're very focused on not just sort of having the 2,500 people in Australia, but they actually have access to the global skill set to work on these projects.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Unisys has been one of those organisations well prepared for a number of years for Australian organisations to start embracing offshoring, and it's been a bugbear of mine because fundamentally the Australian IT industry doesn't have the human resources to kind of match the requirements of what is required by most organisations. Yet we've had this reticence to embrace offshore labour models. So, it's been interesting watching the Qantas strike and the Qantas industrial action over the last week especially, because I think what Alan Joyce is trying to do in terms of making Qantas more competitive, in terms of getting a more highly competitive labour base for which the company can grow from, those opportunities have existed in the IT industry for a number of years, and I think for all the wrong reasons, Australian organisations have kind of turned their back on that. So at the point that many companies, whether they be public organisations, government departments wake up to the fact that they've been very naive decisions not to move down that path, then Unisys is one of those vendors ready to step into the breach.
Totally. I think watch out for them. I think that they're very sort of quiet, as you said earlier. They were sort of the behind the scenes people, but I think that they are going to enable, really facilitate a lot of business transformation, and they're definitely one to look at. So with all the other noise going on about cloud and moving to the cloud, etc., I think that these four core areas around data center, application modernisation, security, and the end user, I think Unisys are in a prime position to help a lot of enterprises in that space.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.